Hi, I'm Joy. I am here with the legendary Sandy Munro.
Legendary means old, doesn't it?
Oh, no.
Oh,
You could
okay.
be younger and still be legendary as well.
Okay, good.
So, Sandy, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
No problem.
And I know that Munro Live YouTube is more on the technical side. It's extremely technical. So I want to offer a chance for the viewers to get to know you a little bit better on the personal level, and also, get your opinion on the whole EV movement as well. So I have about 20 questions for
20?
you.
Wow.
Yes, and it's not all from me. I crowdsourced this a little bit. So I
good.
picked the majority of the questions, and I have some of my own, but these are good questions.
Good.
All right,
Good.
so let's get into it. So to start, we want to know a little bit about your background. And a question that I have is, Sandy isn't like a common name. Is there a story behind Sandy? Is that Sandy, the actual name?
No, my real name is Alexander. And in Scottish tradition, or at least in the Highland Scottish tradition, the name Sandy comes if you have blonde or red hair, and if your name is Alexander, and if you're the firstborn. So I was the firstborn, my hair was sandy, and my my heritage is such that it dates back to when Scots were in India, and the name Alexander in Indian is Sakanda. Sakanda, Sandy, close, right? And the hair and everything else. So I was born. My mother really didn't care much for the name Alexander, but it was my grandfather's name, and I was born on his birthday. Both my grandfather and I had the same birthday. So anyways, my grandfather was there, and he walked over, looked at the hair, and said, "Aye, it's wee Sandy," because my dad and my grandfather were both born in Scotland. So anyway, wee Sandy stuck. I dropped the wee part for a while. I tried to go with Alex and Lex and Alexander and Al and whatnot. My dad was called Al, so that didn't work. But anyways, Sandy seemed to be fine, and that's what I've stayed with.
Awesome.
And I don't mind being kind of associated with Scottish and Indian heritage at the same time.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Yep.
Now we know. Okay, excuse me. The next question comes from Wonderful EVs on Twitter. And he asks, I would like to know what his very first job was. And before you answer, I actually Googled you. So there's a Wikipedia entry on you. And I found out that you're actually Canadian.
Yes, actually is true. Yes,
So
I have dual citizenship. Yes.
now we know he's Canadian. So, and I think your very first job was in Canada, right? So can you share with us a little bit about what you did, how you got into it?
Yes, absolutely. So my very first job was at about 9 or 10 years old, and it was picking tomatoes. Now, I did other things like babysitting, but they don't really classify as a job. Picking tomatoes is definitely a job, definitely. So in the summertime, I lived in the farming area of Essex County in Canada. I lived outside of the closest big city at the time would have been Windsor, and my family wasn't rich. We had no cars and stuff like that. We had a little farm, but it wasn't very productive. And we did grow big watermelons, but they're hard to sell. So I went to work for Mr. Roy on his farm and picking tomatoes. And then I found out that Mr. Roy was a nice guy, but he didn't pay so much. So then across from me was French Canadian. Everybody was French Canadian except a few people in the neighborhood. But anyway, across the street from us was a French-Canadian family, and they picked tomatoes as well. Because if you were good at it, you could make a lot of money. And so they took me out to a farm that was closer to another little city called Leamington. And I picked out there, and I hated it every second. So from 9 until 16, I picked tomatoes, I picked walnuts, or actually picked them off the ground. You don't pick walnuts. I husked walnuts as well. I helped plow. I helped with combine. I picked tobacco, or actually suckered tobacco. I never picked it, but I suckered tobacco, and I was also a catcher.
Wow.
in tobacco drying barns. So, yeah, that was exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah, thank you. So, how did you get into automotive industry?
Like I said, I didn't want to be a farmer. So, and my dad didn't want me to be a farmer either. So he ran a facility or a company called Century Spray Canada. Century Spray made automation and machine tools, and most of that was for the automotive industry. So I started out learning how to use a file, and I just knock burrs off and stuff like that. And that's the way you started if you were going to become a tool maker. You start at the very bottom, sweeping, cleaning out trays of chips, and for learning how to file. And then they graduated me, and I went to a grinder. And I found out that in about a second or two, I could do the same thing that would take me an hour with a file. So I was pretty happy about that. I moved through I was 3 years, I was 18. So you had to be 18 to work in a factory in Canada. So I was 18 when I was 16, 17, and 18. When I was 19, I actually got my journeyman's ticket. I was classified as a tool maker, and when I was 20 or thereabouts, the guys in the shop talked me into going back to school, and bing bang bong, I started getting into engineering. So.
Okay, so subsequently, I think you went to Ford, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Okay, so I went to school. I became not a complete engineer because I found out along the way that if you beat up a professor, you will get expelled. So I never made it. I don't get the graduate. I have no sheepskin. So I went into the engineering world as a machine tool designer. And I worked my way up, and eventually I got to a company called Valiant Machine Tool, and I helped turn it around a little bit, and I had about 105 guys, engineers and designers working for me, and we did quite a number of really excellent jobs for the automotive industry. Ford Motor Company phoned me up, and I moved from chief engineer at Valiant to manufacturing engineer, grade 6 at Ford Motor Company.
Wow. So is that when you came to the States?
No,
it was still I was
Canadian still in Canada.
Office? Okay.
I was still in. That was at the Windsor Engine Plant. So during that time frame, Windsor Engine Plant made a 351W engine, and it wasn't terribly popular because gasoline was really expensive. So nobody wanted to buy it. Then gasoline prices started to level off and go down. People started to want going back to V8 engines. So I was chartered with automating because that's where I came from. We did robots, we did automated systems, picking places, everything at all the different companies that I worked for. So this was no big wow. And so automation they wanted, and they also had critical areas that just never produced. The plant was very old, old enough that Henry Ford I opened it, and it was powered by DC, so Thomas Edison was there as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's old. So anyway, they said go in and fix it up because we're going to have to start producing engines again. The first thing I went to was the initial part of the line, and I found out that they used old magneto shafts. We don't have too many Model T magneto shafts floating around too many anymore. So I redesigned machines, and then I asked the guys in the tool room to make them for me. We didn't have any money to buy new equipment, so we swapped brass tag numbers and just called it a renovation. And it worked quite well. And then there was a guy that was walking around. His name was Don Carlson. We didn't know who he was. We knew he was from the States, and he literally ate cigars. So anyway, we had this big problem with some of the automation in the Conrod line. I said, I can fix that. And so what I did was I got rid of all of the towers that would give you float. I got rid of all of those, and I made it what I called the straight gut system, because I knew the towers were useless. So anyway, I put all that stuff in. We turned it on. It worked really well. In fact, it cranked out more parts than had ever been done in that department before. The guy that was chewing the cigar watched all this stuff. We didn't know. We just knew he was wandering around a lot, but he was from engine division staff. So somehow I got this interview to go at engine division staff in Dearborn in Michigan. And I was interviewing with a guy named Jerry Luke. And Jerry was kind of like contemplating the fact that, hey, you don't have a degree, and we don't know whether we really want you, and, what have you done that really could make a difference? And then Don Carlson walked in, took the cigar out of his mouth, and he said, when does Sandy start? And Jerry said, well, we haven't stopped. Wait, we haven't had the interview yet. And he said, interview's over. When does he start? And he put the cigar back in his mouth and walked away. So I found out that it was Jerry Luke, then it was Al Ambler, then it was Don Carlson.
Wow.
So anyway, that's how I got my first job. And then after that, Ford was in really bad shape, and I started using a technique that we use in the automation world. Then it was called Design for Automation, DFA. People call it Design for Assembly now, but anyway, it's called Design for Automation. And it worked out quite well when you applied it to an engine. I worked on the Vulcan V6 engine. We took 30% of the parts out. Then, and that was because of another guy, my real mentor, which was Max Jurosik. Really smart guy, a little short guy, but he'd bring home these 2 packages of reading material every night. No computers then, so everything was, you had to read. And he put me on a variety of different jobs, and the next thing you know, Taurus comes out. It was a huge success. It had 30% less parts as well. And then my kind of career skyrocketed a little bit.
Amazing.
So I wound up in finance staff.
Okay. So my next question is, instead of staying at Ford or, staying in the automotive legacy company, climbing the corporate ladder, because you could, go up to the executive level, right?
I was.
And so what made you decide to start your own consulting business?
Dr. Deming. Dr. Edward Deming's, Dr. Edwards Deming, he, I met him in 1983. He was my hero. Like I had a mentor in Max Jurosik, but my hero at Ford Motor Company was Dr. Deming. He's the guy who turned Japan around, and he was the father of statistical process control, as far as I'm concerned. I'll get complaints. You'll get complaints. I'm not going to answer any of this stuff. But anyway, he told me that I was wasting my time at Ford. Even though I went from a 6 to a 13, or was headed to a 13, I got circumvented there a little bit because of that Canadian thing. So anyway, I went back to Canada and left. But anyway, as I was headed for a 13, which is first line of executive role, and it was because Dr. Deming told me to quit and get out. He knew what my situation was like. He knew what I was good at, and I was not good at politics. And I advise kids today, if they're not politically focused, they probably should steer clear of the OEMs. It's very difficult to survive if you don't have a good grasp of politics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So next, we have a couple questions. Actually, two people mentioned the same thing. They want to know more about you and Sue. So Sue actually has a fan base.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris Ibarra from Tesla Owners Club, San Joaquin Valley, said Sue is a great addition to the channel. How did you guys meet, and do you still talk about engineering when it's just the two of you?
Okay, so I've already said I am not a degreed engineer. At Ford, I was a non-degreed engineer. They take experience into place. Sue graduated top of her school at GMI. Sue has a master's degree in manufacturing engineering. Sue has an MBA, and Sue has a PhD. So at our house, if we talk about brains, so Sue's head's a little smaller than mine is, but when we talk about brains, as far as engineering is concerned, Sue wins. So that's number one. How did I meet Sue? When Sue, before she went through and got her master's and PhDs and whatnot, Sue was in one of my workshops where we were trying to turn around the F-car. The Firebird Camaro is called the F-car at General Motors. And she was in the back of the room with a group of malcontents. And I was going through my hearts and minds, and they weren't paying attention. So I waited for break, and then I said, okay, we're going to take a break, except for that table. And I pointed at her table, and I said, okay, you... I don't want to use the term asshole, so I'm going to try and think of something else. Get up here and sit at this front table, which nobody was sitting at. They'd already heard that I was not a good news kind of consultant. And I said, get up here and sit here. And then one guy said, you can't make me. And I said, watch this, clown. And I picked up I had a bag phone, which was big stuff in the old days. I phoned the vice president of CPC, Chevrolet Pontiac Canada, and that's who I was working with. I said, there's a guy here that says I can't make it. Could you come down and instruct him to sit at a new chair? And I put the phone bag in the bag, and he said, you can't make me do anything. Well, that guy didn't show up, but he sent down one of his guards or whatever, and suddenly he was there. And then I find out he was a job shopper. Anyway, I could have fired him. But anyway, Sue and the group, they were there, and they got up-close training. And Sue was actually afraid of me, and I hated her. She was not paying attention. So anyway, what wound up happening was, over the couple of weeks, Sue's team vanished. And so she was left with her, because she was the lead. She was the release engineer. And she had somebody from purchasing, and she had an hourly person and somebody from finance. Everybody else was gone. So I was sitting there constantly coaxing him on new designs and stuff like that. Anyway, on the day before the presentation, Sue's typing away on the software, and it crashed. And when this software crashed, you couldn't do anything. And so anyway, I came back, and it was like 5:30 or something. And I looked at the screen, and I knew exactly what was wrong. And I said, you got a problem here, huh? And she said, I don't know what's going on. Nothing's working. And I said, you want me to save your data? You want me to make things happen? Well, that's what you're paid to do, isn't it? I said, no, I'm not paid to do that. That's, you're supposed to figure it out on your own. But if you buy me a drink tonight, I'll fix your computer.
Smooth.
No, it's not smooth. No, most women would have got up and slapped me. Sue turned around because her eyes were this big, and your evaluation depended on this. So it was kind of like one of those bad situations. So anyway, Sue said, well, fine, where? I said, I don't know, there's a bar right over here, and I named off the Victory. I can't go in there. I said, then you can pick whatever bar you want. Are you on? And she said yes, and I reached over and I went and turned her computer off. She about had a shit hemorrhage. But that was the way to fix the software. So I turned it off. You had to count to 30 and then turn it back on. Everything was ready to rock again. So she got her stuff done and whatnot. And then she took me to a place called Teddy's. It had a little teddy bear in the front. It wasn't the first, well, actually it turned out to be a wonderful date. Anyways, and then 13 years later, Sue finally proposed and we got married.
Oh my goodness. So Sue proposed to you.
Yeah. I tried 2 or 3 times, but it didn't work. So she proposed on her birthday.
Oh my goodness. Which is today.
Today, which is today, the 24th. Yeah.
So, wow. Very interesting story.
These things take a long time. You're never going to get through
I know,
20
right? Yeah. And the next question is from Matt EV or Matthew the Techie on Twitter. What influences Lady Munro has had on your career and what you do? She's a very adaptable and highly intelligent woman.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
So
okay, so
how,
there are a few people in my life that have made such a significant difference. I have to say they're game changers. My dad was one. A guy named Michael Soltz that I worked for at Valiant, he was one. Don Carlson and Max Jurosik. Definitely Dr. Deming and Sue.
Okay.
And then later on, Corey.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made big changes in my life. And so Sue, actually, I would have headed down a bad path. I was divorced. I had a lot of money, and I was doing stupid things.
Next, we have a few Tesla-related questions, naturally.
Sure.
So the first one is from a YouTube subscriber, DK Gone. If there was one thing you could change at Tesla, what would it be?
Nothing.
Oh, awesome.
No, I think Tesla doesn't need changes.
Okay.
I might suggest, manufacturing techniques or whatever, but at the end of the day, I'm assuming this guy's talking at a strategic level. Yeah. The big thing that I would hope that they do is try and stick with the team that they've got. Okay. I've seen many good companies go to hell in a handbasket because they changed the team.
Yeah.
But apart from that, nothing.
Wow. High praise.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't give that out easy too.
Yes.
I don't want all you Tesla fans to say, "Oh, Sandy's." No, I get paid for the truth. I do not get paid for happy talk.
Yeah.
I am not a big time consultant, and I'm old, so I'm fireproof. And I don't really need the money. So I only tell the truth.
Okay. Next question comes from a Twitter follower, Alex Tirol, Tirol. This has something to do with the mega casting. So he's asking, will these big single front and rear parts make repairs after a crash more expensive or even impossible?
Okay, so first off, if you have a major crash, you should get down on your hands and knees and thank whoever the engineer was that moved into giving you a mega casting. Mega castings are infinitely stronger than the structure that you've got in your car right now. If you do manage to break the casting, you couldn't fix it if it was a steel car. It just can't be done. So I don't want to fix vehicles because at the end of the day, those vehicles are not going to drive or perform the way they're supposed to. If it's a major crash, and you're ruining the longitudinals, or you've gone beyond there's a thing called crash cans, and you've gone beyond those and you're pushing the rails in different directions, you don't want that car. And I don't want that car on the market. I want it taken off. If you happen to be in such a crash that you broke those castings, which I think are strong, I know are stronger than what you can get out of the steel, thank God.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Next question comes also from a Twitter follower, Brendan Leon 3. This person asks, Polestar is the next to get into mega casting. Are they able to scale as fast as Tesla, taking into consideration of proprietary metal?
The proprietary metal can be made by anybody who gets a license to build that proprietary metal from Tesla. Tesla bought that. They bought a lot of different patents and whatnot to create that specific material. That material is the only one you can use to inject in basically milliseconds. So that part's not a real big issue.
Okay.
What was the other half? The front half?
Are they able to scale as fast as Tesla?
Oh, yeah, scale. Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, Geely, who owns Volvo and Polestar, can do anything they want. Geely is a great company. They were one of my customers when I was in China. They've been to Munro several times. When everybody else was poo-pooing electric vehicles, Geely was asking us to help them design vehicles. Ramping up is only a matter of getting in line. And I should tell you, well, you'll be the first to know, I'm headed for IDRA next week.
Great. Next, we have a couple of questions about Rivian. So the first one comes from Aaron J. Cash on Twitter. He asks, what is the largest technical advantage that Tesla and Rivian each have over the other?
Okay, so the Rivian has a stacked battery pack with a cooling system on the bottom of the battery, which means that the bottom of the battery is what gets hot first. Tesla cools on the side, and Rivian cools on the bottom. That gives, I think anyway, that gives Rivian a slight advantage for cooling. Tesla's driving system, the ADAS system, is far superior to everybody's. Nobody is anywhere close to what they do. Rivian can go off-road, and I'm not going to take my 3 off-road because my wife will hit me. But Rivian has got some features that I really, really like. Tesla, without a question of a doubt, is right now the world leader. Anybody that buys something other than a Tesla, unless you're buying a Rivian or something that's got something unique and different as far as feature, function, whatever, is probably making a mistake.
Okay. So next Rivian-related question comes from Ken Hunt, Electric Ken on Twitter. Ask Sandy or Sue for which UI experience you prefer, Tesla versus Rivian.
Again, it depends. If I'm going on a long trip, so my wife and I went to visit my son in London. So that's a fairly long drive from here, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. We took the Model S, or sorry, the Model 3, because it's much more comfortable. The front seats in the Tesla are, without a question of a doubt, the most comfortable car seats anywhere. And I have been around.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, but we've probably taken around 400 cars to pieces. Those seats are really, really nice. So for a long drive, that's what I'd pick. If I was hauling plywood, I would pick a Rivian. If I was going off-road, I would pick a Rivian. These two vehicles are not in the same category at all. And if you're looking at just driving experience, the driving experience in the Model 3 or the Model Y or the Model S or the Model X is vastly different and probably superior to what you're going to get in a Rivian. Rivian, however, though, beats the daylights out of anything that's off-road. There is, and I know what's going to happen. Some Jeepsters, don't tell me. Don't tell me, okay? I've been driving off-road vehicles since I was 13. I've driven military, commercial, every kind of Jeep, every kind of Rover, every kind of vehicle you could imagine, Toyota, whomever. I've driven everybody's. Nobody drives off-road like a Rivian. Nobody,
wow.
Period.
Wow. What about from like a software perspective? Tesla over Rivian?
Over everybody.
Over everybody. Wow. Okay, that's your answer. Great. Next, from Adam Hove on Twitter, he said, don't ask him about hydrogen. And I said, I think I'm going to.
Okay, fine.
So, it seems like you had a good visit at Nikola specifically.
Okay, so I thought we were going to be staying on cars.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of hydrogen for Class 8 trucks.
Okay.
Class 8 trucks. That means the big trucks that haul maybe 1 or 2 wagons, or in the case of Australia, 5 or 6 wagons in back of them. That's where it's good. And the other one, big ships. And the other one, airplanes. That's where hydrogen shows giant promise. Anything else? No.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah, because of the refueling infrastructure, it's expensive and it's ineffective. It's not viable for regular sedans that are just running around. Yeah.
But I will tell you that I know everybody throws rocks at Nikola, but you know what? They're helping out at Oxnard right now. If you're in California, you should send a thank you note to Nikola, because if you go down to the big docks at Oxnard, or if you go to LA docks and you see them sitting there next to their diesel breathing brothers, you can see a vast difference in the amount of pollution. And by the way, anybody who's going to, don't tell me is my favorite expression. If I say it, I know what I'm talking about. If you say for a second that, well, there's no difference, bull. When you watch a great big giant diesel spewing air, because those guys got to live in those cabs, and you can't turn off your engine if you want air conditioning, and you can't turn off that engine if you want heat. There's a giant difference between what you're going to see from Nikola. Those are pure electric trucks. But anyway, if there's going to be a vast difference between their products and anything that's diesel.
Next, we have some general EV questions. So this person, Jacob Kuldas, Tesla FSD Beta Q on Twitter, asks, what is Sandy's take on automotive industry transition to EVs? And this is also my question as well related to that, is from your interactions with legacy auto companies, do you have like a sense of panic or pressure from them on the success and popularity of Tesla?
I see really only one company, maybe 1.5 companies, that are really and truly making giant strides toward EVs. So I've already said that Tesla's number 1 and Rivian's number 2. Now, when I talk about traditional legacy people, I'm not talking about China. If we talk about China, everything changes. But for what I see some good news out of Ford. I mean, when you take and put the onus, the EV onus on your highest profit vehicle, which in their case is the F-150, and when you take a gamble on that, then I'd say you're in. You're in. But at Ford, I see a definite risk aversion to going to EVs.
Okay.
The other group, to me anyway, is actually Chinese, but Volvo. If you go to Norway and you look at what's going on there, or Sweden, or Europe in general, Polestar is selling like there's no tomorrow. Volvos are selling EVs, are selling. Geely is pumping them with the best products they've got. So I'm pretty enthusiastic about them.
Okay.
So I said 2.5. The other half is Volkswagen. Okay, so, and the reason for that, only a half, is because Dietz, he should get some kind of medal or some kind of an honor. He is pushing a rope right now, trying to get the rest of Volkswagen on board. Dietz, to me, he's a hero, and I hope he doesn't get fired.
Okay. But from the U.S. Market, there's resistance, aside from Ford, maybe?
Aside from Ford, I don't see a 9,500-pound vehicle being even viable as an off-roader. I don't know of anything that's going on with Stellantis, so that's what Chrysler's owned by. And I'll tell you right now, I think that in 5 years, regardless of who the president is and regardless whatever anything else is going on, the American people are going to demand, and I've seen this already once, I'm old, they're going to demand that they get electric vehicles, just like they demanded to get fuel-efficient vehicles, and the U.S. government had to fold up their tents and move behind the curtain, if you like, when the Japanese had the vehicles that the people wanted, and unfortunately, we had laws then about banning cars that came from Japan. Well, we've got laws right now that make it very difficult to sell Chinese cars. Those walls are going to have to come down, because while everybody else is screwing around trying to market their way into the good old days, it ain't going to happen. And the Chinese, I think, are going to take over about 30% of the market in less than 10 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's great. Next question comes from Jamie Harvey from YouTube. Which OEM do you feel has implemented their optimization suggestions the most? Is
he talking around the world, or is that?
I think, your clientele, if you can share or not. If not, it's okay.
We don't have much of a client. We have a lot of startups, and so I don't know how to answer that, except to say that if we look at the people that are out there, and we're looking at the OEMs that people know, I would say that Ford. Okay. Well, I just go back to the same things: Ford, Volvo, and
Volkswagen.
And perhaps Volkswagen.
Okay, great. So the next question comes from Trex Lil Tiger on Twitter, bullish Tesla stuff. You kind of answered this earlier, but he's asking whether the Tesla and the number 2 EV player gap is widening or closing. And my question was, who do you think is the number 2 EV player behind Tesla? And you said Rivian. So do you think...
Well, no, that's not...
Oh, that's not true.
No.
Well.
And so the number 2 player is in North America is Ford.
Is Ford, okay.
And the number 3 player, or the number 2 player in Europe and the United States would probably be Volkswagen.
Okay. So do you feel that the gap is widening or closing between them and Tesla?
Volkswagen has said that they're going to eclipse Volkswagen said they're going to eclipse Tesla by 2023.
That's pretty ambitious. Do you think that would happen? No.
No.
Okay. And the next question is actually my question. You have been talking about EVs coming out of China. Yeah. So any EVs coming out of China you think would be at the same caliber as or even better than Tesla?
Even better than Tesla?
Yeah, or just on the same level as Tesla.
Okay, so my top picks would be Geely, who have already gotten into the market.
Yeah.
Neo, Xpeng, Great Wall, and then close behind that would be Shanghai Automotive and probably Beijing Automotive. Well, Beijing EV is different. It's part of Beijing Automotive, but it's probably going to be coming out. There are a tremendous number of EV companies in China, and their products are impossible to if you looked at gaps and you looked at comfort and you looked at features and functions, they would be right up there with almost everybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
they're
good to
very
know.
I mean, people are starting to say that, I've lost my mind and whatnot, and don't you know that Chinese, they only make umbrellas or something, little drink umbrellas. But at the end of the day, here's the deal. I've been there. I spent 3 months of the year every year from 2015 until 2019. And what was I doing? I was training them on how to design using our methods for electric vehicles. So why wasn't I doing that in the United States? Because obviously EVs will never happen here in the US. And I got that from very high-ranking people.
Oh my goodness.
And I showed you.
Yeah.
When we walked by,
Yeah.
I showed you. There's a casting sitting right there. Did they go for it? Absolutely not. Wow, you don't understand. Crash worthiness, blah, 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 blah. Obviously talking through their butts.
Great. Next question comes from Ken Jones on Twitter. Is there an intuitive way for consumers to recognize a poorly designed or assembled EV? And in contrast, what should consumers look for in an EV in terms of the quality?
Number one, no, you can't. An average person cannot do any of those things. There's going to be some slick sales guy, and that's another thing that I'm hoping is going to disappear. There's always going to be a slick sales guy that's going to tell you his product is the best, and if he happens to have, a lot of teeth and he looks muscular or whatever, you're going to believe him if you're a woman. And if you're a man and there's a couple of extra unbuttoned buttons, you're going to, it's a trap, okay? The only way that you're going to know is if you do research in the internet.
Okay.
And that's why we produce what we produce.
Yeah.
You want to know the technical stuff? We'll be happy to help you out. You'll know everything once you see what we've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next, we have a couple of interesting questions. The first one is from Jake Campbell on Twitter. If you could design your own EV from parts of 5 other cars, what would come from where?
Well, actually, the Tesla suspension system is obviously from a BMW. The Tesla wiring system is their own. The body design I would probably pick from Bentley because I've always been a fan. Either Bentley, it depends on what kind of car I'd be trying to design, but it'd either be Bentley or it'd be something from Maserati. I like Maserati styles and stuff like that.
So that's
seats, front seats I would pick, they would definitely be Tesla. Rear seats, this is going to sound goofy, but I really like the Skywell. I love their rear seats. Skywell is a Chinese car we have here. Did you get a chance to drive it?
Yes. No, I didn't drive it, but I did take a video of it, which they will see.
Okay, well, you should drive it. It's not, it doesn't have any guts whatsoever. But you know what? Most of the people that want an electric vehicle really aren't interested in going rocket ship fast.
Right.
But and then I would want the performance characteristics of the Model S. And then when we look at the body style or the body doors, I would like to have the Model X.
Model X.
Yeah. Gull doors in the back. So there you go.
Okay.
So that would be
your dream
Franken
EV car. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd start there.
Okay. Great. Next question comes from SkyTim42 on Twitter. Is the e-car revolution the most exciting thing you've witnessed in your long career?
Yes.
Yes. What is the next big engineering challenge for society, you think?
Flight. I think that, yes. I think that what we need to do is we need to start taking advantage of the third dimension. We live in a 2D world. We get in a car, we drive on a street, and that's it. But my experiences with aircraft and whatnot have been such that I believe that a VTOL has to come somehow. Now, I said I wasn't a big fan of hydrogen for cars, but hydrogen might be the way to go if you have a VTOL, a vertical takeoff machine. So those kinds of things that are sitting out there that that we haven't kind of gotten to yet have something to do with flight. It's going to have to be something new, maybe something a little different, but we need to get into the air. We're wasting too much time on the ground.
So do you think flying electric cars will ever become a reality?
They are a reality right now.
Oh.
Just not here. The Chinese, my last trip in China was 2019, and I was giving a big speech, and they gave me a really nice hotel in Shanghai, and I had like a corner thing, okay, and it was huge. My bedroom was huge. It was like my first couple of houses glued together had less square footage than this thing did. And so anyways, I was walking around the room, and a lot of people knew that I was there. They had announced it at gigantic billboards. I'm popular in China, or was. Anyway, so I mean, there was big billboards, like, I don't know, 40, 50 feet by 20 or 30 feet. They're big, saying, oh, Sandy's coming to town. So anyways, I'm standing there, and I'm looking out the window, and I hear this humming noise, and it sounds like a million bees. So I turn around, and here is 3 VTOLs, 3 vertical takeoff machines. One's really close to my window, one slightly ahead, and one slightly behind. So they're flying in a V formation. And they're sitting there, and I turn around, and the one guy in the left-hand seat closest to me waves. And then the one guy holds out a sign. The guy who was in front said, "Welcome, Sandy."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then they peeled off. So the guy on the outside, then the inside guy, and then the last guy. They've got him already.
That's like science fiction movie scene.
No, it can't be a science fiction, because in reality, it's a science reality thing, and there's where we are falling behind.
Yeah.
We're falling behind as far as electric vehicles. And why is that? We don't have good government direction. We don't know what we're doing. We think that somehow the marketing and whatnot that comes from some of the automotive companies, like, oh, range anxiety. Where did that come from? I know where it came from. Oh, the aluminum castings will crack and break. These things are pumped into our brains, and they're a lie. It's an absolute lie. It's just trying to eke a few more years out of the ICE vehicle industry.
Yeah.
I work for a big company. I kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not, we're being sucked in.
Yes.
And our government basically is paid to do what they do.
And then next we have a couple of questions. It's, advice for engineers. So the first one comes from Christopher, or Dutch Wild, on Twitter. He wants to know, was it hard for you to convert from ICE to the EV concept? And are there a lot of engineers that struggle to grasp that EVs will be the new way?
It depends on how mentally old you are. When I was at Ford, I found out about chronological age and health age. But since then, I found out that there's another way to gauge how old you are. And one of them is, well, they both have to do with thought process. And some people at 20 are really thinking like 80-year-olds. And some people that are 80 are thinking like 20-year-olds. So I don't know if you've ever done a dynamic on your YouTube channel, but I know that based on the feedback I get is that on this end of the curve from, 5 years old until maybe 15 or 18, I have a big bump. And then around 35 to 55, zip.
Right.
They crash. And then you get over to around 60, 65, and 80, I'm seeing this dip on both ends. I mean, I'm looking at this and wondering what the hell is going on. But that's what I get back. On my emails, I get emails. Actually, I have a little teeny tiny mask from some kid that was like 9, not 9. He would have been about 7 or 8 years old, but very precocious. This kid was really smart. and he's come up to me. My emails are flooded with guys that are retired that knew me from a million years ago, or 15-year-old kids, saying that they're having a hard time living with their parents because they think old-fashioned. They're making it. Actually, last night, one of our guys, we had a little party,
Yes.
and one of the guys said to his daughter was maybe 7 or 8, something like that, "Tell Sandy what happened when you got a chance to ride in a Tesla." And she turned around and she'd been goofing around, but now she was deadly serious. And she said, "Well, if everybody had a Tesla, then there wouldn't be the kind of noise that we hear out in the street. That's the one you want to listen to, from the voice of babes."
Yes.
Yeah, that's where the wisdom is. So anyway,
Yeah.
I can't give you an age that says this is the right age for.
Right.
It's not there.
But was it hard for you to
No.
convert? No, because you already. I think now that I've hung out with you for a day and a half, your mind is like in the future, and you don't limit your concept to a particular mold. So that's probably why you were not like dead set on it has to be ICE, but you're completely open.
Well, at Ford, I was an engine engineer.
Yeah.
Non-degreed, but I came up with more ideas than any of the degreed guys.
Yeah.
And that's how I got promoted.
Right.
And I told you, we've done several engines. My first big promotion came as a result of what happened on the Vulcan V6. And I was in charge of the manufacturing, pretty much engine assembly and test anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had design control, because I was co-captain with another guy that did have design control of that engine. And I was applying my tricks to his engine. I was applying what I wanted to do as far as the automation and machine tool aspects. He agreed to that. He was in charge of making sure that we were going to get the type of emissions that we were looking for, that we were going to get the performance characteristics we were going to get looking for. He had the combustion chamber and stuff like that, but that was Max Jurosik. He made that happen.
Yeah.
And that engine turned out to be a giant success for Ford Motor Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, I got a lot invested there. I could sit around and pound my chest all day long about those kinds of things. Forget it. That was then, this is now.
Right.
So it's time to move on.
Okay, that's great. So the next question comes from Mars J. Cannell on Twitter. What does it really take for one to be set apart from other engineers? And it's also a question that I have related to that is, what is the most important skill an engineer should have today if they want to work, in the auto industry, for example?
Most important skill.
Yeah. Or what does it take for one engineer to be set apart from others?
Okay, that's two different questions. I think the most important skill that I picked up over the years is to shut up and listen. Mm-hmm. Guys on the factory floor told me how to design the product. Customers that are customers and whatnot that actually use the products, they told us what to do. Like I said on the club car, we did a lot of listening and writing down. We didn't do a lot of telling. Mm-hmm. It's the number one thing for somebody that wants to succeed is to listen. My dad used to have this thing, how does it work? You got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. The other one is a poem. A wise old owl sat in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Try and be like that old bird. Mm. Those. So I think I don't know where that came from, but there you go. That's the answer I'd give. And then as far as setting yourself apart, try not to get into when you're first into a big company. Try not to get into the political realm. There's plenty of guys that you cannot possibly beat. Get your job done.
Yeah.
Go out to the plant, find out what's going on, get your job done. Do your job, and it'll set you apart.
Okay.
People who just kind of want to sit around in the boss's office, eventually they'll get a satisfactory recommendation. But if you go to the plant and the plant manager sends a little note to your boss saying, hey, this guy really helps, send him, leave the other guys at home, do your job.
Great advice. Thank you. So final 2 questions. The first one comes from Jacob Probsfield from Twitter. He is asking, what is one thing you wish you would have known or done in your younger years? What was the most important life lesson that you have learned over your career?
Wow. Well, let me think about that. What's the next question? That's a lot of thinking.
Well, what was the most important life lesson that you have learned over your career?
I'd like to skip that.
Well,
they're both saying,
this is
who is this guy?
I actually
him
know him.
Yes.
He's a young guy. I think he's like 20 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I thought this was
Yeah.
What's the most important?
Or what's one thing you wish you would have known or done in your younger days?
Well, probably I could have got a degree if I wasn't such a smart ass. So I put most of the, well, not all of it, but I've tried to become a lot more tolerable. Okay, I have a really hard time with stupid. I really do. And sometimes, no matter where you think people are in the intelligence world, some people have a good idea and you should sit there and listen. So I wished I, in my younger years, would have maybe listened more and thought less. Maybe my dad telling me that that ratio and, you know, the old owl business. I think that probably would have been something that would have helped me out when I was young. And the last one was what?
What was the most important life lesson that you have learned over your career?
I've learned a lot of lessons, most of them the hard way. The most important life lesson. You know what? The most important life lesson and the listening instead of yakking is probably it's the same answer.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's looking for some deep philosophical thing, but at the end of the day, if you shut up and listen to people talking, you get the job done.
Yeah.
What's his name? I have a couple of people that I think a lot of. One of them is Churchill, and Churchill, he said something similar to that. I can't remember the exact quote, but he also said that the best thing you can do sometimes is to sit and listen to what's going on around you. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's very practical advice.
So he added a little bit of religion in there too. He said that God will speak to you if you shut up. I think that's kind of it's either his quote or mine, but I've said that in the past to people. God will speak to you if you shut up.
Yeah, great, thank you. So
Yeah.
the very last question comes from ENL3X1 or L3X1. Have mean will travel on Twitter.
Mean. Wow.
Yeah. What is your preferred mustache oil brand?
I don't use oil brand. I don't use mustache oil. But I will tell you that at Corey's wedding, I grew my mustache incredibly long, and then I used some goofy wax because they had Corey had a wedding that was like a theme wedding, and it was from the 30s and 40s kind of a thing. And so I came as the Monopoly man.
Oh,
because I bought a bowler. I twisted my thing and I bought a old-fashioned suit. You can buy all this crap online. It's amazing. And I bought this thing, and actually Corey's photographer or whatever has pictures with everybody that was there wearing my bowler.
Oh my goodness, how fun.
Yeah.
So you've always had a mustache.
Yes, and you know why?
Why?
I need all the help I can get in face coverings. I'm thinking of going like Eric and growing a beard, but I even look worse with that. It used to be that I grow a beard and I look like Wolfman. Came in red and brown and black and gray, and oh my God, looked like shit. So anyways, but yes, I don't use any mustache oil. I occasionally will comb it if it looks really bad. I did comb it today for you. I also put hairspray on because my hair doesn't work well. It just boing, just popped out. So I wetted it down, and in fact, if you went into the restroom, the executive restroom, that's where the hairspray is.
Yeah.
And I left the cap from the hairspray in the sink, trying to get
I saw
it.
that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sandy, for your time. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So now you guys get to know Sandy a little bit more on a personal level. So tune in to Munro Live and see what they're gonna do next.
There's some big surprises coming. Very big. I mean, huge surprises.
Yes.
That are coming up in July.
Okay. So stay tuned. Bye.